Hello, and welcome to Still Buffering, a sister's guide to teens through the ages. I am Riley Smurl.
I'm Sydney McElroy.
I'm Taylor Smurl.
Well, sisters, welcome to another special, very special episode
Thank you, Sid.
of Still Buffering. I always like to welcome you both to
Happy to be here.
I brought you
Appreciate
here
it.
today to discuss with you something very important. But first of all, before I tell you what it is, we have a very special guest this week.
We do.
Yeah, so welcome, Dad.
Father Collected.
Yay!
Well, thank you. Hello, daughters.
Hi, Dad.
Hi, Dad.
This is our dad who's here with us. I don't think we've given him a nickname on the show.
No.
I think he was Low Country Tom.
Low Country
Oh,
Tom.
that's right.
I
Low
forgot
Country
about
Tommy.
Yes, my low country enjoyment was broadcast to all that listen.
Your Low Country love.
That's
Low country
true.
love.
That's true. I'm sorry about that. Usually when people join the show, when people come guest on the show, they get to pick their own nicknames, but we kind of already gave you one preemptively. So, but it fit in so well with like Scampy Mike, so
Skittles
you know,
Joe.
and Skittles Joe, Low Country Tom.
Well, that's fine. I was one of those kind of guys that nicknames never stuck to. I mean, I had an assistant basketball coach in high school that tried to put a nickname on me, but it never stuck.
What did he call you?
He said he had to think hard to make one up, and that nicknames are not good when you have to try to think something up. They should occur naturally.
That's true.
You look
Piece
at
of
someone and it
advice
just
from
that's
Country
it.
Tom.
You know, hey, Flash. You know, whatever.
Is that what you wished your nickname was? That's what Dad really wanted somebody to do, was look at him and say, "Hey, Flash."
Flash.
Well, he tried to call me Goose, and I was like, "Why
Goose?
Goose?" Well, you got big old long arms, and you look like a goose flapping around out there.
No.
Dad.
But none of the other guys called me Goose, so he eventually gave up.
Well, that was probably for the best, so you didn't have to
Dodged a bullet there.
Yeah, I was not campaigning for that as a nickname.
Okay, I was going to say this predates Top Gun, so it
That's
would
what I
not
was
have
going to
been.
say. Wasn't that a character?
Oh, that was well ahead of Top Gun.
A character based on Tom Smurl.
And I thought you were called like a lot of nicknames that had to do with our last name.
Well,
Smurl.
that's I don't know how that happened in the neighborhood. It's not like there was a bunch of other people with my name, but for some reason it was Smurl. And usually for some reason it had an H in it when other people said it, so it was more like Schmurl when they said it. And then when my younger brother was there, it was Big Schmurl and Little Schmurl. And that's, pretty much the way it was.
I felt like that happened to me. I still have people who knew me before I got married who call me Smurl when they see
too.
me. Yeah,
Teachers have just called me Smurl, and that's what they call me.
or
and it's
sh- or
funny
Schmurl,
because it's
or-
not a common name, or it's not anything. It's not easy to say, because most people have to ask, how do you spell that? Because I always have to spell it when I order a pizza, or else it comes back Smith or Smile or something.
Yeah,
Smile would be a pretty cool last name, though.
I've gotten a lot. I've gotten a lot of swirl and squirrel.
Squirrel.
Yeah,
I had an entire prescription at the eye doctor that was under the name Smell.
oh, that's too bad.
That should have been the nose doctor.
Oh, Dad.
You're right, Dad. It should.
Now you can look forward to lots of jokes like this on this episode. That we've been missing some dad humor on this show.
We've been missing some dad jokes.
Well, Dad, whenever we have somebody on the show, before we kind of get started talking about what we're ever going to talk about this week, we like to ask you first kind of a general question so that our listeners can kind of put you in like the teen hierarchy, like where
Teeniverse.
you fit. Yeah, in the teeniverse. How did you teen?
I would have to say that my teen years revolved around sports. From the time I was little, I grew up in a neighborhood where sports was everything that you did. So I didn't know any better. That's what I did. Whatever season it was, that's what sport I played. And probably the only thing that kept me in high school and kept me making good grades was so I could play sports. And that was just whatever season it was, that's what sport I played. So that was the most important thing to me, and everything I did revolved around that.
So would you have kind of defined yourself as like a jock, so to speak?
I was a jock, yes, as far as playing sports, but not like the jocks in the movies where they're the guys that play sports and get the girls. I wasn't like that. I was involved with sports, and that was more important than anything else. and I was a little overly competitive.
Yes.
So that
has shown in
Yeah.
some of us.
and that's not an admirable quality when you go around and you're overly competitive and you are a bad loser and you're angry about things. And so I don't think that's something that appeals much to girls. So I had that reputation.
Or most people, I think.
Or just people in
Yeah,
general.
men and women get a little concerned about that. There was a story that I remember, I don't know if you told me or mom told me, because I had it wrong for a long time. I think I had an exaggerated version where you got mad after, because you played several sports, not just one. So I don't know what kind of game it was. And what I used to tell people when I was younger is that my dad got so mad he went back to the locker room and ripped his sink out of the wall. Which I'm fairly certain was wrong. I think it was a paper towel dispenser.
That's correct.
Okay.
It was a basketball game. And
When I was younger, somehow I got that mixed up in my head, and I used to be like, my dad used to be really into sports, and one time he ripped his sink out of the wall because he got so mad when he lost.
well, it was a very close game against a team from Kentucky, and the teams from Kentucky did not like losing to teams from West Virginia. So I stole the ball like in the last few seconds, went in and made a layup, and like 5 seconds after I made the layup, then the referee called a foul on me back at half court. Oh. And so, of course, that enraged me, and I backed that referee down the court face to face, telling him I did not touch that other player. That didn't go over too well. As soon as there was enough clearance between our chins, he got the whistle up and blew it and threw me out of the game.
Oh, Dad.
So I went back to the locker room, and when I went back, I was so mad, I kicked the paper towel dispenser, and it went flying off the wall.
Okay.
So when the coach and the rest of the team came in after the game was over, because I got removed before it was over, so when the coach and the rest of the team came in, they said, "What happened to the paper towel rack?" And I said, "Well, I kicked it off the wall." And I said, "And if you don't like it, I'll rip out every sink in here too." So
That's
that
where
was
it
a
came
threat.
from.
Yeah, the sink didn't get torn out. I threatened to do that. So
Okay.
the coach, if I was the coach, I think I'd have gotten rid of me. But instead, he just said, "Okay, well, calm down."
Well, and that story, and in general, what we've been talking about so far is a really great lead into what we were kind of going to talk about this week, which is sports.
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 Yeah.
You
Because
mean the album by Huey Lewis and the News?
Yes.
that was an album by
That.
Huey Lewis in the News.
Sports. It's the best album they ever put out.
I'll have to take your word for it.
Another pro tip from Dad.
Of
Low country
all
song.
of us at the table, can we cede to Dad authority on this subject? Like,
Yes.
what is the best album by Huey Lewis in the News? I guess Dad gets to pick that.
Yeah.
I will not question your judgment
Sure. Sports.
on this one thing.
Because, sports are, for many teens, part of the teen experience. Not for everybody, certainly. Not everybody plays sports. But even if you didn't play them in school or an organized league, I think everybody at least has had some passing experience with kickball or, hopscotch or something.
You probably had to take
Hopscotch?
gym class.
Yeah. Is hopscotch not a
Scotch?
sport?
Is that a sport?
I don't know.
Professional hopscotch.
Now
That in the
broadcasting from the
Olympics?
Professional
Hopscotch.
Hopscotch League.
Charlie would love that.
You start working on her now, yeah.
She could be a professional hopscotcher someday.
In the Olympics.
So, but I think all of us have some passing experience with it. Or even if you never played a role in any of it, if you never took part in any of it, part of the high school kind of experience has to do with like your sports teams and your feelings about them. And there are things like pep rallies, which I know at least for us were kind of mandatory. So whether or not you cared about sports, they kind of they became part of your life. So
Yeah.
is that fair to say?
I agree. Because, I don't play sports right now, but, every football season, it's like everyone's going to football games and talking about whether we won or lost at school and, championships and Spirit Week for the championship game or whatever.
That's
Stuff like that.
true. You don't think about things like that. Things like Spirit Week, where you're supposed to care about. We say you have school spirit, but you're really it's kind of school sports spirit.
It's sports spirit.
We can pretend that it's
Football
all
spirit,
about
mostly.
all the clubs and activities for the school, but it's mainly sports and
Yeah.
competitive things like that. But it's like a whole week of costuming. of creative costuming about sports that everybody participates in. Did you
Sport
used to
costuming.
do Spirit Week? Is that a new thing?
I don't remember ever having anything like that.
You didn't have Pajama Day and like Twin Day and Superhero Day?
We didn't even have snow days.
Is that because you had to walk back uphill both ways in the snow,
Barefoot.
10 miles,
right.
of course?
You walk barefoot.
It was the times. They were hard.
Dad predates shoes.
Well,
You got your first pair of shoes when you turned 18.
I heard you say on the music episode that we didn't even have vinyl. We banged out tunes on rocks. So,
It was something like that.
Yeah.
But so there was no Spirit Weeks. You had pep rallies.
the only thing I remember when we played, there was the two main schools in town at the time. Now they're consolidated into one school, but there were the two main schools in town, the city schools. And when they played each other, there was usually a pep rally that took place the day before the game. And all that meant was when it was over, you went over and egged the other school. So
Like both of you did?
That's so much better than dressing up
Yeah.
in stupid clothes
That
for a
is
week.
better.
they would be driving towards our school to throw eggs, and we'd be driving towards their school. So
Did you? But neither of you thought to stop each other? Like instead of trying to stop the other people from egging your school?
we never played defense, only offense.
Did you guys ever do that thing? See, in Archie comics, sometimes they steal other schools' mascots, which usually the joke is that it's an animal and then they put it in Mr. Weatherby's office. That's usually the joke that they end up with is like Mr. Weatherby comes to school, he's the principal. And they're like, oh, there's a goat in my office. Is that a real thing?
It may be somewhere, but we had Highlanders, which there wasn't really a Highlander.
Yeah. You would have
We
had to
had-
steal a human. That's called there's a name for that. It's kidnapping.
The Pony Express, which, that was...
Wow.
you
Did they
know,
have a
Pony?
horse?
They just had a picture of a guy on a horse.
Really sad.
That's not as exciting.
And you had the Pirates. There was, and then you had the Greyhounds, and I never saw a dog at their games. So I don't
They
know.
had a bus.
The only one, the college in town.
You just cracked yourself up with that.
Their mascot
No,
was
they didn't have a bus. They had a school bus. That was all. The college in town. Now they did have a live mascot for a while, which is a buffalo. And they would
Really?
bring this
What?
live buffalo to the games. And one time it got loose from its cage and ran out on the field. And everybody scattered, and it stopped to eat the grass. Only problem was they had AstroTurf, so it was not enjoying the
Is
meal.
this a real story?
It's a real story.
Is this also from an Archie comic?
That's a real story.
Dad, did you grow up in an Archie comic?
That's what I'm trying to get at.
The buffalo got loose.
Aren't buffalo like endangered? Or why were we allowed to have a
I don't think you're allowed
buffalo?
to have those.
I don't know, but we had a buffalo. We don't have one anymore, and it might have had to do with the AstroTurf eating incident. I don't know.
Probably.
Skip,
Yeah.
Buzzy, and Jeff let it go.
Your mythological friends, Skip, Buzzy, and Jeff.
Most of Dad's high school stories revolve around three guys and himself, and their names are Skip, Buzzy, and Jeff. And I'm not alone in this opinion. Do not believe that this is real.
They do not exist.
There's 3 personalities in Dad's head.
Now, Mom actually met Buzzy one time.
So Mom can vouch for the existence of Buzzy.
Buzzy.
Yes, she can
Not
vouch
Skip
for
or
Buzzy.
Jeff.
Buzzy was a guy that had the exact same birthday as me, born on the exact same day. But the guy looked like, now I was 16 at the time, he looked like he was 30.
So Buzzy lived a hard life.
Was Buzzy Benjamin Button?
Buzzy has seen things.
All I know is he could walk into Pizza Hut and he could order beer. Of course, you only had to be 18.
Into Pizza
but he looked like he was 30, so nobody even thought about
They
it.
sold beer at Pizza Hut?
Yeah, they did. They sold beer at Pizza Hut.
Pizza Hut would be so much better with beer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the drinking age then.
I just need to know, before we talk more about sports, were Skip and Buzzy their given names? Was that like on his birth certificate? It's like Buzzy whatever.
I think so.
Buzzy fake friend.
No, his
Dad
actual,
didn't make up middle or last names for them.
that was too hard. Buzzy's actual real name was Paul. Now that I think about
okay.
it, but
Okay.
everybody knew him as Buzzy. If you just said Paul, nobody'd know who you're talking about. I played ball with guys up at the Y, and we don't. Somebody says their given name. Hey, did you hear Aaron got hurt? Who's Aaron? Oh no, Aaron. Oh, Franklin. Oh, Franklin, I know. And that's because everybody knew him as Franklin Furnace because his T-shirt said Franklin Furnace. So everybody called him Franklin from then on.
Really creative way of nicknaming people. You got to be really careful what shirt you wear if that's
right.
the case. So, Dad, you played a lot of sports in high school. You weren't just like a one sport kind of guy.
Right. Football, baseball, basketball, and track.
Okay. Was that pretty typical for like somebody who was just athletic to just play all the sports?
For the most part, yes. I mean, you didn't have the concentration on one sport, I think, that you have now. I mean, that to me, that led back to our neighborhood. Go home, you get home from school, and everybody'd be waiting at the football field if it was football season, and you'd play football. And if it was baseball season, everybody was waiting at the baseball field. So, that was just what you did. So when the different sports rolled around, you went and tried out. And I was never great at any of them. I was usually good enough to be a starter, but I never excelled at any one of them. And that's kind of the difference that I see is that kids pick a sport and specialize in it, and their parents send them to training camps and send them to special stuff, and they work out and exercise all based on one sport. So,
did you do a lot of I remember even when I was younger, and I kind of played several different sports, but I remember going to like the camps to try to get better. Now I had never had like private lessons. I know that you two did, right? I know you did, Riley.
Yeah, I definitely have private lessons.
Taylor, you did too, didn't you?
yeah.
You had tennis
I
lessons?
took some tennis lessons for a while, yeah. And Dad took over as my coach.
Yeah, Dad was also my coach for a while too.
Dad was my coach, not so much in tennis. Well, I guess no. I mean, you taught me how to play tennis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One year you had to participate in a sport to get the top of the hill award that you were interested in. So you said, "Teach me tennis so I could play tennis."
Is that why I did that?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't remember that was why. I remember out of the blue, I just played tennis for a year and
That
then
was
never
why.
again.
Yeah, you wanted to get the top of the hill award at your middle school, and you had to participate in a sport to do that, and you didn't play any sport at the time.
So I did.
And so that was your last year in middle school, and you made one of the doubles teams. And Taylor came along then the next year, which was her 7th grade year, and she said, "I want to play tennis." And I said, "Well, all right." And at the time, in my thinking, Sydney, you were my athlete. Taylor was a little girly girl. She was the one
I
that
played
always...
sports.
Yeah, but you always wanted to wear dresses around and never seemed that interested in it. So I thought...
To wear dresses.
I'm wearing a dress.
Yeah.
I am not interested in your ball games.
That's right. She wanted to play with dollies and have tea parties, So,
That's not... Wait,
and then...
I think you're thinking of when she was like a toddler.
Remember your hokey pokey dress?
Exactly.
You never wanted to get out of the hokey pokey dress.
When I was like 2 or 3.
Was that a nightgown or was it a slip? That may have been a slip that you wore all the time.
No, it was a nightgown.
No,
It was
a nightgown?
Yeah.
It had moons and stars on it. It was
And she called it her hokey pokey dress.
I don't know why.
Because you like to do the hokey pokey when you were wearing it.
These are very revealing things for the world to know, Dad.
I think these were childish, like the age appropriate expressions of your artistic. I think this is what would later come out as your artistic side. Early on, it was these. You had that hokey pokey dress. And remember, you used to collect those little glass animals. Taylor had this whole.
I had an actual glass menagerie.
She did have a glass menagerie. That's true.
And then she would go to the shopkeeper, wherever, that weird store at the mall where we bought glass animals.
Coffee, tea, and thee, and they would give me the broken ones for free usually, and I felt bad for the broken ones.
You wanted the
'cause
broken
they wouldn't
ones.
have a home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I collected the broken glass animals.
You would think you were going to nurse them back to health. They would grow a leg back or that broke off or something.
I don't think I had any plans for full recovery. I think I just wanted them to be dependent on me.
You want to make their last days comfortable.
Legless lamb, you'll never leave me.
Taylor was running a hospice for glass animals. No, well, I can see where, with that in mind, I remember there was a point in time where you weren't so much into playing sports, and then all of a sudden you did.
Yeah, that was a point.
Hey,
I'd always thought of at the time that Sydney was the athlete and Taylor wasn't that interested in it. And then she came up and I said, okay, well, I taught Sydney to play. Why wouldn't I go ahead and teach Taylor to play. And then Taylor took it and became an animal with it. Mm-hmm. I mean, she ended up being a state champion at number 2 singles for her senior year, runner-up her junior year, and won it her senior year. And she was just tennis on the court. I mean, diving for balls and running up to the net and slamming them over. Yeah, she made tennis a full contact sport.
Well, I mean,
far exceeded anything I ever imagined.
You were much better than I ever was, that's for sure.
And it was a large part due to Dad's help. I remember the one thing that he devised, which looking back, it was pretty evil. It was that girls didn't like it when you were like aggressive and like dangerous. So he would have no one would like rush the net. So his whole game for me was just run up to the net and just hit it as hard as you can at him.
They all wanted to stand on the baseline and just hit it back over the net.
Until someone hit one out.
Until someone hit one out or hit it in the net. You taught me the same thing.
You taught me to run up to and slam it over and try to hit someone.
And I don't know, I like we have already referenced, I played tennis for like literally a year. So I was not a huge tennis person. I liked other sports better. But my perception is that that's not just true for women's tennis, men and women's tennis. I think that it has this kind of reputation as a more polite sport.
Yeah, we threw that up.
Right. And I think it was very different. And I remember too, and this was something I think we all had in common, that none of us ever wore any of the clothes they make for you to play tennis in.
No. Like everyone always had like their little matching like fitted tank shirts and skirts and all their matching shoes like on my middle school tennis team, and I wore like off gym shorts and tank tops.
Yeah. Well, I just wore T-shirts like
tennis.
I mean, I remember like playing tennis in like a Jimmy Buffett T-shirt.
Yeah.
Well, when we got to be my senior year, myself and the number 1 seed, we were the captains, and we got to choose the uniforms. And she was kind of different too. She wasn't like she was not a girly girl, not like a polite tennis player, classic kind of. So we picked tie-dye tank tops.
Her saying was, "When in doubt, call it out."
Oh yeah,
that's true.
She was wicked.
Your freshman picture and your senior picture are up on the wall at our high school.
Yeah.
And it's like your freshman year, you're wearing the skirts, and then senior year, you're...
Yeah, but white dresses are our freshman year, which is great for athletic activity.
And then you were saying you guys got the tie-dyed.
Yeah, when it was our choice, we chose tie-dyed tank tops and shorts, and the rest of the girls probably hated us.
No, they're really cool, and it's funny that you bring that up, because I found the picture of you. I have it. I was going through some old pictures just recently, and I found my picture of you, the wallet of you in your tennis uniform from that year. And Charlie found it, and she loves it. She's not sure who you are then, because you look very different. You had red hair then, for one thing.
Yeah, I had like fake red, like bright red.
Bright red hair, and you're in that tie-dyed outfit, and she picked it up, and she thought you were this cartoon character named Pinky Dinky Doo that she's a big fan of. So she went, Pinky Dinky Doo! And she won't put the picture down. She had it up on her mirror on her little dresser. This picture of you from your senior year, you're in your tennis uniform. She keeps going, Pinky Dinky Doo.
That nickname should stick.
Oh, no.
But
Taylor would get out there, and she refused to wear the outfits the other girls would wear. She did not want to wear that. She'd wear old raggedy shirts and stuff like that. She didn't want to wear that. And the girls would be like, "Okay, are you ready to start?" And Taylor would be like, "Serve the ball."
I would grunt. Like, nobody grunts in tennis. I did.
It was an application of, and this was across the board, because we all played different sports. And like I've mentioned, I played a few. But across them all, Dad had a similar kind of theory about sports, which shouldn't apply to tennis, but I guess maybe you made it apply to tennis too, Tay, which was, if you can't win, draw blood.
That's true.
He used to tell us that. And so that was always how I went at everything, like, especially soccer. That made soccer especially brutal. Because, like, we didn't always win, but I wanted to make sure that if somebody was laying on the ground crying, it wasn't me.
Well, see, that all goes back to my days as being a bad sport. Winning isn't everything, isn't it? Everything. It's the only thing, you know. Unfortunately, that was the way that I reacted to things, and that's not good. And it caused me a lot of difficulty in my younger days, and took a long time for me to grow out of that. And then when I turn around and coach you all in things, I got to try to play that down and walk a fine line between play to have fun, just learn the fundamentals, go out and have fun, or do I teach them to play at their best level? And if I am I doing it for them or am I doing it for me? And I don't want it. I didn't want to do it for me. If you all want to excel, then I'll do everything I can to help you excel. But if you just want to go out and participate and have fun, then different level. And I always had to weigh on myself, am I pushing them too hard into something they don't want to do, or am I helping them achieve what they want? And as a parent, that's really tough, especially with my background, being overly aggressive and overly competitive. I didn't want to bleed that off on you. And I think God knew what he was doing when he gave me daughters, because if I'd have had sons, I would have had that kind of judgment to not push them and been like, go out there, you got to win, you got to be number one. And I'm afraid I would have done that with sons, and I think that's why I had daughters, because that had to change my perspective and try to put it in line with a normal human being.
Well, that's a good thing. I think that would be very hard. I have a daughter, and of course, she's not playing sports yet. I'm not forcing her to do that. She's barely at that point, but I can see where that would be hard, wanting her to be her best, but not push her too hard and make her feel bad.
It's a fine
about
line,
it.
and kids can't always articulate what it is do you want to achieve. I just want to go out and have fun, Dad. I don't want to beat the other guy on the ground. Oh, okay. Well, you're that kind of guy. Okay.
Which is hard because I don't know, and Taylor and Riley, you weigh in on your feeling on this. I know, though, I was always very competitive. So I did want to have fun, but I wanted to win. And I had zero interest in playing something just so that I could say I did. Like, if I was going to do it, I wanted to be the best at it. And that was not just true for sports, but everything I ever did. So, like, I did want to win. It wasn't just about having fun for me. I could never get to that kind of point. I don't know if you guys felt the same.
I know that when I started competing in tennis, because I was never old enough when I was actually like doing it all the time to compete. But then when I got to middle school and I started competing, I know that I didn't really like it. I know that it was like I'd go to tournaments and I was on the doubles team, and I would get there and it's like there would even be times where we were competing for seeds on the team, and I'd be playing against other girls on my team, and it's just like I never did well when I was competing. I always did really well whenever I was just, playing games that didn't mean anything. But I always remember Dad would sit out there and like I'd look over and I know I'd miss a shot that I missed, and Dad would just put his head down in his hands and be like, oh no, what have I done?
Yeah, but I was trying not to look at it because she'd look at me, and that was one thing that's hard as a parent, when your kids look at you for approval in those things.
Yeah.
And you don't want to give them a face that, oh, you screwed that up. You don't want to give them a face, way to go, hit the tennis ball over the fence.
Like whenever...
So I just covered my face. It's like, please don't look at me. I don't want to play your game. Leave me out of it.
I don't know why I hated competing so much, but I hated competing, and I just wanted to like go to clinics and like play games that weren't for rankings or anything.
Just go out and hit the ball.
Yeah,
learn how to hit it.
I was good whenever I didn't do that. I wasn't good when I competed, and I just remember my favorite story is when I was just competing for a higher spot on the tennis team, and I was in 7th grade, and the girl was playing against me was in 6th grade, and I knew I was better than her, and I knew I could beat her, but I lost to her, and I did really bad. Like, I was playing really badly, and I get in the car, and I'm expecting Dad to be like, well, you did your best, like you can do. No, he gets on the phone with Mom, and she's like, so how'd she do? And he said, well, she did awful.
Well, I didn't want you to think you played your best and lost. You played bad. That was why you lost. If you'd have played your best, you would have won.
I don't know if that's better or not.
And that a positive spin.
It's safe to say that was my last day on that team. I left the team after that. I didn't come back.
Now, Taylor, I know you wanted to. I remember. I think it's fair to say you wanted to win.
Yeah, I was.
You were aggressive. You were competitive.
I mean, and to a fault, honestly. Looking back, I was very competitive. I definitely wanted to win. I had something to prove on the tennis court. But and even now, it's something that I struggle with, where if I know I can't be the best at something, it's hard for me not to just give it up. Like, I'm really bad at sticking with things that I'm not going to win at. And I think that's why Dad, as my coach, was really good for me, because I needed somebody to push me. Because if I thought if there's any sort of pushback, it's like, oh, forget this, I'm done. Like, I can't win this, so I'm not doing this. And
yeah,
that's to this day, it's like, it's okay. You can be kind of good at something and be successful at it. You don't have to be the best.
Exactly, especially if you enjoy it. That's something I keep reminding myself. If you're enjoying it, it's okay. That's enough.
When I look back now, though, when Taylor would play, she never lost to the same person twice. If she lost to him once. The next time she played them, she beat them. And it's because we would go home and I would have analyzed the girl's weakness and strengths. And I think about that now. And here I am telling her, here's how you can beat that nasty 16-year-old girl. She does this well, so stay away from that. She doesn't know this, so do this. And I think about that now. I think, man, that was pretty cutthroat. But I mean, but Taylor would listen. She would take that strategy in and go out and do it.
I remember some poor girl that she had like just a better forehand, better backhand, and if she could get set up for a shot, she could hit a winner. So the strategy that was devised, because I had a really good lob, was to hit a little short shot up in the net, so she'd have to run up, and then lob it over her head, so she'd have to run back, and just do that over and over and over and over and over again.
Oh my gosh.
And you did it and pounded her.
And we did it. I won.
It's like the art of war applied to tennis.
I know.
That's what I say. I would devise a strategy based on the opponent's weakness and strengths, and Taylor would go out and execute it perfectly.
Yeah, I didn't. It wasn't pretty, but it worked.
As we've kind of already alluded to, Dad coached us all to some extent in a lot of different sports. I remember the first thing. I think the first thing you ever coached was probably my t-ball team, because we played t-ball and something called 5-pitch, which was sort of like
5-pitch. Your own coach pitched. You got 5 pitches to try and hit the ball.
Yeah.
So that was after t-ball, because t-ball you hit it off the tee. Then 5-pitch, your coach threw it to you as opposed to an opponent.
And then what I do remember really well was you coached me in basketball in 5th grade. I remember that very well because I was not good at basketball. I don't know why. I don't know why I played basketball. I just wanted. I remember wanting to. Like, I don't remember anybody made me. I wanted to, but I was really bad at it. And there was a day we had a game, and then that night I think I was in a show. Right? I think we were in theater at this point. So I think that we had a production of something. It may have been The Wizard of Oz. Something, and my hair needed to be curly. So I played the entire basketball game with my hair in curler.
I remember that.
I remember, like, that must have been the most embarrassing moment of Dad's life. Like, my daughter's playing basketball and she's in curlers.
It'd have been like Tom Hanks. There's no curlers in basketball.
I did. That was never. Basketball was not my thing. I tried out in 6th grade and didn't make it. It was okay because then there were so many other sports.
The thing I remember most about coaching girls basketball is girls don't like to have to touch each other. In basketball, you've got to body people out. You've got to get position on them.
Yes, in 5th grade basketball, you have to body people out.
Now,
That's right. You got to get
I don't even know what
position.
that means, but that sounds so brutal.
I think unfair gender generalization, and then I have a follow-up. So boys like to touch each other in basketball?
That's right. It's one of the benefits out there. I don't know. No, but it's got to be okay to be physical, is what I mean. Girls don't, that's what I should say. Girls don't like to be physical in doing that.
I think it's fair to say that it's probably true. It's a lot more accepting, even now in our culture, although I think things are shifting where anybody can kind of be comfortable with whatever. But I think it is true that there's still this sort of acceptance that boys are going to be more physical.
More aggressive.
And that girls are not. And I think that as you go further back, you find there's a lot more clear, like, well, I'm not supposed to be mean or tough or knock people down or anything because I'm a girl. And now we're seeing that slowly go away. But that's still there. That stigma is still there, that girls should be less aggressive and it's okay for boys to be more.
Nah, girls, you body people out when you want to.
Exactly.
Even to this day, you body them out to that donut. There's one left and you want it.
Hip check left and right.
Do you think that that's going away now, Riley? Do you think, like, I know you don't play more contact sports like that, like basketball or soccer was the one for me that soccer got pretty bloody back in, I mean, even when I was a teenager, soccer was rough. Boys, girls, both. But do you think that is going away? That you see, like, your friends who are girls who play sports are just as aggressive?
No, they get really into it. I mean, the ones I've only played one sport ever. I mean, I played soccer when I was 5, but I mean, when I was on a doubles team, like not competing but playing a game, the two of us were trying to do something. I would just, you're not gonna get it. Okay, I'll get it. I'll run in front of you and I'll take all of the shots. Like getting aggressive and getting into it. I mean, even hurting myself. But I mean, other people like playing soccer. All the girls I know, like friends I had to play soccer, they like elbow people out of the way and fall on top of each other to try to make it so another person can get the shot. I mean, it gets really aggressive.
And there's not that kind of stigma that like girls are supposed to be more delicate anymore.
No.
I don't think.
Because I think that's one of the things that's evolved. I think you hit on that. Is there weren't the sports opportunities for girls. You didn't have a girls' soccer team and stuff like that. I think I remember a girls' basketball team when I was in high school, but they didn't have softball teams. They didn't have girls' soccer. They didn't have a lot of those things. I'm not even sure if they had a girls' tennis team.
Really?
So I don't think they had the opportunities, and it may have been some of that, old style mentality that girls aren't supposed to be aggressive and do those kind of things. That has changed since Title IX.
That's what I was going to say. Did that predate Title IX? Probably.
Yes, I'd say so. And then Title IX, it opened the door for more of those opportunities, and I think that all plays into it there because you've got to have those sports at all levels on an equal basis.
Sure, because if your only opportunities for women to participate in extracurricular activities are non-contact things like our clubs or choir or band or whatever, and you don't allow them the opportunity to play sports, you're kind of sending the message, this isn't for you.
Right. I know when you all got to age to play softball, that was a whole new concept to me because they did not have girls softball when I was growing up. There was Little League. There were places where girls would decide they wanted to play Little League with the boys, and it's like, are they going to let the girls play? And of course, a lot of the excuse was, it's too dangerous for girls to play that with boys and things like that. But eventually, they started having to let girls play, and then eventually they came up with their own league for girls. But I think that's evolved into something that makes it. And, you don't have the same, you're talking about the 60s and stuff like that. And there were different norms, 60s and 70s, as far as what was expected out of women and men. Most of the time, you just had the one parent working, and nowadays you have two parents working. And that, I think all that plays in together, that everybody's an equal.
No, that's a very true and a good thing. You mentioned softball, and so Dad coached us all in softball. Well, not Riley. You didn't play softball. Dad coached Taylor and I in softball. Many years, I feel like.
I think I played as long as you did. I think I stopped after you left the team, Sid.
That led to a lot of fun things. Dad would get very involved in the games, and I think it's okay. Like, he just doesn't tolerate injustice. If he feels
9-year-olds playing softball.
Those games had so much pressure on them that for me, they were so hard. I was so glad and relieved she didn't want to play softball.
Yeah, you all played all the sports. I just kind of started one sport, and that's the sport I played.
Which I want you to tell me more about in a minute. If that's more the norm now, because that's the feeling I get is that the days of like Taylor and I kind of dabbling in various sports and everything are kind of going by. When Dad did coach us in softball one time in particular, because he used to argue with the umpires fairly regularly.
Only if I was right.
And I remember once that I don't remember why Dad got thrown out of the game, and I was angry at this because when the umpire ejected him from the game, and it's always very dramatic. Like when umpires and referees can never just say like, okay, we're gonna have to remove you. It always has to be like hand gesticulations and like, you're out of here, mister, get out, somebody get him out. I mean, like it always.
They live for that minute.
Call security, remove him.
It's always like a big thing, and like they have to give the big thumb, like out, like the like they're calling you out in baseball, like, hey, you're out of here. And I remember they did that, and then the other dugout erupted in cheers because our coach was getting thrown out of the game. And so I took off across the field. I don't know what my plan was, to take on the entire other dugout and fight them all.
That's right. She was standing up for me. You all shut up. That's my dad. I'll take you all.
I did. I was yelling and crying, and I got dragged back to my dugout by my teammates. And then Dad went and put on, he had this big, it was like a duster coat and hat.
Your Outlaw Josie Wales coat.
Yes, it was.
That ain't much of a living boy.
There it is.
He had his Outlaw Josie Wales costume in the car, and he
always ready to go.
And put it on.
You never know when you're going to need it.
And then hid like on the hill back behind the field so that he could still watch the game, and also because I didn't have another ride home, but to watch the game
and shout instructions from the outfield.
Dad also got kicked out of one of my soccer games. He wasn't the coach.
Now, that was a...
I think he got kicked out of the entire city that the soccer game happened
I was
in.
just a fan at that. Now, both of those were not... neither one of those were my fault. Now, the softball, that was as simple as this. They called our batter out for stepping out of the batter's box when they hit, which is a legitimate call. If you step out of the batter's box and make contact with the ball, you are out. However, I just came out and made the point, how can you call them stepping out of the batter's box when there's no batter box? They had failed to draw the batter's box prior to the game, and there was no batter's box. So I said,
That's
how
a
can you
fair
call
point.
them out of the batter's box when there's no batter's box? So they threw me out for that.
Was
So-
it just that, Dad? Was it just that?
That was it. That was it. I know I'm guilty of much more.
Did you call him a knothead? Because that's what happened in Winfield
No, that
at my
was
soccer
Winfield.
game.
that really lowered my thoughts on soccer after that. As a fan, I'm sitting up there, and the referee made a call for the other team. It was a hard fought game. You all were battling back and forth. A hard fought game, and they called some kind of foul of some type. I don't even know soccer. I don't know how.
They
it
yellow
works.
carded a girl on my team.
Yeah, and I said, call them both ways, you knothead. I'm a fan. I should have the right to say knothead. That's not even.
He
bad.
really did say knothead. That's not censored for this show. He said knothead.
That's what I said. And the referee turned around and said, "You're out of here." And I looked around both ways. I thought, who's he talking to? He threw me out.
But then what followed was Dad threatening to come find him and kick his butt later.
That's true. I did tell him I'd track him down and make him pay.
So we got a letter that said Dad was no longer welcome in the city of Winfield.
As long as I didn't come to the city of
Dad, have
Winfield,
you
they
ever-
wouldn't press charges.
Have you ever gone back to the city of Winfield?
I go by that exit on 64. I never take it.
Never take it.
I'm not
No.
sure if when the statute of limitations runs out.
Waiting for him.
As soon as you take that exit, the cops just descend upon you.
When I cross the city line, there he is. He matches the description.
Now, Riley, today, because we've talked a lot about kind of in high school and in like I kind of mentioned in the beginning, sports are part of the whole thing. There are people who are kind of, at least even I think when Taylor and I were in school, were like defined by their participation in sports. It was a thing like, do you have school spirit or not? Do you love our athletics or don't you? Because
We have spirit. How about you?
exactly, it was like a big thing. And like not wanting to go to a pep rally or not going to the football games. I remember even then, in the 90s was like, well, what's wrong with you? Why do you hate our football team? Like it was a thing. Are sports still that important to the teen experience?
I don't think the people really care at my school, at least, care about the sport. Like they don't care about whether we win or lose. Like they don't watch the game when they go to the games, or like they don't really know who's on the team. I mean, they know the popular people that are on the team, but there are probably people on the team that aren't popular, but they just don't know because they're not popular. So it's kind of like you have to be popular and you have to be playing the sport for people to know who you are, but people don't really care about like how we played or like who plays what. I mean, they're on the team. We won the game, we lost the game. That's kind of it.
Is it still the most I would say that it was even then, and Taylor, I don't know if you would agree, it was considered like in the hierarchy of things you could do in high school, like the most important thing would be like
Go to a
if you're in
football game?
if you're go like be in a sport, go to the football game, like be a part of that. Like
Yeah.
that trumped like my show choir performance is this Saturday,
Yeah.
or I'm in the theater department and we're putting on a show, or like our speech and debate team has something to do, or like like art, like I'm gonna I'm doing we're gonna have an art show,
Arting. Art.
whatever we're arting,
Art.
or certainly things like I just joined the Spanish club or the science club. I don't know, there wasn't a science.
Yeah.
Mu Alpha Theta has a great event. Of all those things, if we were to put them in like a ladder, sports was probably
Sports is
still
at
on
the
top.
And not even all sports. I mean, at least at my school, the only one anyone cares about really is basketball and football. Mostly football.
But that's
Yeah.
still the case,
Yeah.
like of all those things.
yeah, definitely.
Because Dad, I mean, you would say that was probably the case.
Yeah, basketball and football were the dominant sports. That's true.
People in the community were invested in it. It wasn't just like the people who played it.
Right.
The school
I'm
revolved around
amazed
that.
how like the two main high schools around here are like rivals or whatever, and like every year when we play each other, adults like Dad's age, your all's age, come to watch the game. They don't even have kids that are in it or like kids that go to school there. They just come to watch the game because it's like, yeah, my high school versus that was our rival back in the day. We gotta go watch this game. Like, what? Why is that such a big thing? It's a high school football game. Like we have a college like here, and we go and watch the college football games. But I mean, that's different. That's college.
Yeah.
This is the high school football games.
I can't see going back to. I know what you're saying though, because I see some of my Facebook friends that I graduated with who are talking about when those games happen, like they went to them or like cheering on,
it's
and
not
I'm like,
they're
and I know
taking
they
their
don't have.
kids.
No, they're
Yeah.
not taking their kids, so they're just going.
Yeah.
Like as grown-ups going to watch kids play a sport that they have no involvement with.
Sometimes it depends on the area. Like here in town, we have a local university that plays Division I level sports. So that's what a lot of the community goes and supports, as opposed to the individual high schools. There are people that go to those too. But like when I lived for a year at Martinsburg, the high school was the biggest sports in that area. And everybody in the community came out to the games on a regular basis. I mean, whether you
Really?
had kids in school or not, the community supported the high school and came out and watched it. So, with maybe if a university had been there, that would have been what they did. But not having that supplied the entertainment. And I mean, basketball games were the same way. I remember our gym being absolutely packed with people, and a lot of them were just people that wanted to come watch the game. They had no connection to it.
Well, then I guess that's something that hasn't really changed based on what you say,
Yeah.
Riley. I wonder if that's more region specific too.
Maybe. I mean, we're in such a small town. I mean, it's like
I wonder, and I'm sure some listeners will inform us, but if this is kind of an American thing, or if this like in other countries, if there's that much focus. I mean, I feel like those are our sports, like basketball and football.
I would have
like
to
that's
imagine this is an American thing.
yeah, like that's kind of for American teens, like that sort of myth has been propagated through entertainment and TV, and that's sort of something we all kind of continue to embrace.
Yeah, that would be interesting to know if that is, especially when we're talking about in a school, if it is still, because that, from what you've said, Riley, it's still that perception that like, if you want to be doing the thing that is the most important to the school and to the community and most like exemplifies what they stand for, play a sport.
Well, and those sports in particular. Like no one really cared the tennis team what we did. We had fun, but like, whether we won or lost, it was like, oh, you got a tennis match? That's great.
While you were recognized if you were an outstanding football player or basketball player or something like that, it wasn't to the degree that it is now. Now you see, like, even at high school level athletes, that they travel by a different set of rules than the rest of the high school kids. They make exceptions for them, and it's not right. Mm-hmm. Just because you might excel at a sport doesn't mean that you're any better than the other kids that are there that don't do sports. And you didn't have that kind of adulation back like when I was a kid. That I see now, this adulation that the kids are getting for scholarships when they're in middle school and stuff like that, and they're given a different set of rules to play by than the rest of us. And I think down the road that hurts them, because there should be more emphasis on becoming a good person than a good athlete. And I see those kids suffering for it because a lot of them don't all pan out. You might be great as a 7th grader, and by the time you get to college, you don't pan out. Then what have you got?
And you're exactly right. That's a crazy thing to bet on. Like the idea that we already assuming that you're going to be a professional athlete. How many people get that opportunity?
Or that you're still going to like it that much. I mean, I was really, really into playing tennis every single day. Now I don't anymore. I mean, if you start when you're in middle school, then maybe you have that 10-year span when it's like middle school, high school, college. But if you start when you're 5, then you're burnt out on it by the time you're in high school.
Mm-hmm. And there are also a lot of things, athletics are good. A lot of the things we've talked about are good qualities. Like, I think we all want to work really hard at something, to be tenacious, to not give up, to want to strive for, success, and to be the best, which is a double-edged sword, but in some ways, is beneficial to want to always perform your best. Those are qualities that help you in lots of fields. You don't, just because you're a really good athlete, and I mean, you can take all those skills and apply them to something else in life and be super successful. We don't need to pigeonhole people into, since you can do all that, you should play basketball for the rest of your life, or you should play football for the rest of your life.
I find the ability to pinpoint my enemy's weaknesses and slowly wear them down over time to be incredibly useful in my daily life.
And sometimes that does help.
I actually, although I have let go of if you can't win, draw blood credo in my life, that would be very contradictory to what I do now.
I'm done, unless you have to.
Yeah, so I abandoned that principle.
But it's like you talk about the teamwork part of it, and that's something you learn: the teamwork and to compete together. Sports isn't the only way that you can accomplish that. I mean, when I was in high school, I saw like the theater department doing shows, and I always had like a passing interest in that I'd like to get involved. But your rehearsals were right after school, the same as practice. And there was no way I was not going to play basketball, football, baseball, or whatever and go do theater.
Sure.
I mean, that just never even occurred to me that was an equal trade-off. As I got older and you three were involved in theater, then I started doing things backstage and helping, and then eventually on stage with you all. And what I found there is as much teamwork and support for each other as there is in any competitive sport that you play. And that was a real lesson to me to see that people think that's the only place you get that. Go do theater. I mean, it depends on everybody on stage doing what they're supposed to do, whether you're, the stage crew or whether you're on stage or you're in the orchestra or lights, whatever it is. You can really learn the same lessons there.
I think in some ways it's even more so because, I mean, when you're on a sports team where you're not all playing at the same time, and even sometimes when you're playing at the same time, you're kind of trying to beat the other people on your team so that you're higher up on the team, or like, so you're number one seed, or you're, the top doubles team. You're trying to beat everyone. And I mean, when you're in a cast, it's like you're all trying to work together for the same thing. You're not all trying to beat each other to get something better.
That's a great point, because
Yeah,
because
That's very true.
you want everyone to be doing their best.
Yeah, because I mean, you don't want to go up on stage and know your stuff, knowing you haven't helped anyone else or like taught anyone else anything or like helped someone memorize their lines, because then you go up there and you know what you're doing, but no one else does, and you don't look good compared to everyone else.
So I owe you all a debt of gratitude for dragging me into that, because that's something I never would have done in my older years. And at the age of 40, you all dragged me out on the stage to go do those things.
well, this has been a lot of fun, as usual, sisters and dad,
Yeah.
this week. Thank you all for joining us.
Did you need me to tell a dad joke before we go?
Go for it.
It
Do
sounds like you
Do
want
it.
to. Go ahead.
All right. A mushroom walks into a bar, and the bartender says, "Hey, get out of here. We don't serve your kind." And the mushroom says, "Why not? I'm a fun guy."
It's my favorite one.
That was great, Dad.
We're really going to hit a whole new demographic we haven't been able to pick up on this show,
Dads.
which is dads.
It's
Dads
either-
who like dad jokes.
Hey, all
It's
you
either
cool
dad
dads.
jokes. It's either dad jokes or guess who died this week. So
Yeah, that's true. That's the other game Dad plays with
Every
us.
day, Dad gets home from work after I get home from school, or like taking me to school. He's like, "You know what I read about the other day?" And at first, I'm like, "Oh, it must be something interesting. Must be something happy." Now I've just learned who died. Who died?
Oh, and it's always the same if he ever says, "Hey, do you remember so and so?" The end is always going to be they died.
They died.
Always the end of that story. It's never anything else.
spoiler alert.
Well,
Aw.
thank you at home for listening to our show. Thank you so much for all your support. Thank you for those of you who join our Facebook group. If you're not a member, please come join. There are so many different like splinter groups
Yeah.
now.
I don't even know how many there are.
You have to go to like Still Buffering on Facebook, go join the group, and then you can find them. There are book clubs, and there are video game
And
interest
movie
groups
clubs
and movie
and-
clubs and
Yeah.
pen pals.
There's a craft club that I saw. That's I
There's a
think
craft
that's new.
club?
Yeah.
There we
Might
go.
be new, I'm not sure.
I think there's a D&D club. There's so many different clubs. So check out Still Buffering on Facebook. You can tweet at us at Still Buff.
And hey, next time you hear us, won't we be live
Next time you hear us, we'll be live from
New York City?
New York City.
Yes,
Right here
that's
with me.
that's insane.
That's right.
That's crazy.
So, but
Live
we,
from New York. It's Saturday night.
And it will be Saturday night.
yeah. So we're going to steal that.
Yeah.
Thank you. If you do take the time to email us, please, we love your suggestions, comments, thoughts, whatever. Still buffering at maximumfun.org. And if you have a second, you can always review our show on iTunes as well. Still buffering.
Yeah.
So thank you to the Novellas for our theme song, Baby You Change Your Mind. And thank you to Maximum Fun, our one network of shows that supports us
Yes.
and that we are happy to be a part of.
This has been Still Buffering, a sister's guide to teens through the ages. I am Riley Smurl.
I'm Sydney McElroy.
And I'm Taylor Smurl.
And I'm their dad.
I am a teenager.
And I was too.
Hi, I'm Lisa Hannawalt.
And I'm Emily Heller. And if you're not listening to our podcast, Baby Geniuses, you're missing out on stuff like
Kumail Nanjiani solving the Zodiac murders.
Who's like, would you ever go to a friend and you're like, hey, could you lick all these envelopes for me? You'd be like, you're a serial killer. I'm leaving right now.
Guy Branum talking about Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
And it was just a great moment of like, oh no, I'm here, boys. Like, I'm on this side of the bench.
Megan Amram talking about intimidating baristas.
Just feel like they're always in character. Like, they're always in character as, like, cool hipster girl. And I just want to break through that barrier.
Plus, every week we explore a new Wikipedia page and talk to a crazy expert in the field of nonsense.
Well, any hack can make you not have a boner. I mean, it's about how you do it.
Right.
You know?
And we're the only podcast with regular updates about Martha Stewart's pony or your money back.
We're not going to give them their money back, are we?
No.
Let's keep it.
Yeah.
Listen to our show every other Monday on Maximum Fun.
Yay!
Yay!
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture. Artist owned.
Listener supported.